Anyway, I am super excited about this episode today, Liz. We should start by welcoming everyone to the Behind the Signs podcast, episode number. No idea.
Who knows?
I don't think
I've never counted.
I think we have like 90 something recordings right now. Well, some of the old ones from some of the old ones I did without you.
I'm not going to pretend to know. They can do that math. They're all up there. So if you want to count yourself, have fun.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of all up there, let me just say this to you. If you're watching this right now, if you could do Liz and I a huge, super duper, gigantic favor when you go to YouTube, the Behind the Signs channel at YouTube, and you're watching this video, please subscribe, because then we won't keep getting annoying ads from Monday.com or whoever else.
Yeah. I mean, it's an okay program, but
we don't even get paid for that stuff. You know what I mean? It's like, not like we're getting paid. Once you hit 1,000 subscribers, and we're getting pretty close.
Then they take the ads off?
Yeah, I think so. They take the ads off,
which is really that'd be cool for you guys.
That'd be good. Yeah. And come on. We have, I think we're almost at 18,000 followers in the Facebook community. So if you're on Facebook, our Facebook community is really cool. The amount of help sign shops are giving to each other is super impressive. You have a question about something you're building, ask it in the community. You have a question about pricing something and want to just a few other opinions, ask the community. How to install something, ask the community. Want to complain about Joe and Liz?
Do it to his face.
In the community. But anyway, I say all that to say subscribe to our YouTube channel, please. Okay, that's all I get to say about that. So, yeah. And so before we kick off today's podcast, first of all, we did decide we're going to break this interview down into 2 episodes.
Yeah. This is another topic similar to Videlcia. This topic is so important, not one that I think a lot of sign companies really ever talk about, or should take classes. Yeah, should be. I think any business owner. So, definitely splitting it up into 2 episodes. There's too many gems to cut them out. So, all right. Today we're talking to, I feel like I've already done this, but today we're talking to Victoria Liozynyansky. It's not that hard. It's actually very fun to say once you get it down. Liozynyansky. Liozynyansky.
Man, you're nailing it. You're nailing it. She is the founder of the Brilliant Speaker Academy. And I am here to say that I actually went through her program. I found it extremely helpful because public speaking, even though you think, hey, we do this podcast all the time, but Liz and I actually, we technically hate public speaking.
If I could curse, just know there's a curse word in here. And I would say, I hate public speaking. It is the bane of my existence. It's terrifying. I get red. I'm a red getter. Do you guys ever, just straight up, just travels right up my whole body. Yep. Bright red.
Here's the thing about public speaking as a sign shop owner. It's learning to communicate on all levels, right? First of all, finding your voice, communicating to your employees, which trickles out to your clients, which trickles out to your community. And it's really important, to learn to, I'm not saying public speaking like you have to be standing in front of 5,000 people and giving a presentation, but just learning to communicate clearly and effectively and compassionately and, all those and passionately about yourself and your work and your shop and your employees. And it just makes a huge difference in learning to be comfortable with that. And so that's what this
Victoria has so much
to
tell us. So we're definitely, this is episode 1 of 2.
Yep.
And we're so excited for you guys to hear it. So before we get started, I think we need to say a little thank you.
Yes.
Do you want me to start?
Yeah, sure. Why don't you start?
Well, I'll start with our friends at International Sign Association. By the time you guys see this, we are officially back from ISA Expo 2026, and I have no doubts it was wonderful.
Yes.
Can't wait to go in 2027. But I hope I got to see a lot of you there and talk to you all. And but if you don't know by now, we're huge advocates for International Sign Association.
Membership matters, right?
Membership matters is very correct. And you can learn more about that at signs.org.
Yeah, you did it.
I know. I've been practicing.
Also want to thank, go ahead.
No, that was it. No, you're good.
That was good. You nailed it. All right. I also want to thank our sponsors at Inktobo. So if you go to inktobo.com, you can learn about all the products that they offer to the sign and print industry. But since we are behind the signs and we're talking to sign shops, the two products that are focused on the sign industry are here in, Sign Tracker in the US and Canada, and actually other countries too, but US and Canada primarily. Sign Tracker, so you can go to sign-tracker.com, or again, you can link through inktobo.com to learn about Sign Tracker for project management and quoting. And also, if you're in the UK and you're UK based, there's claritygo.com. And again, for project management and quoting, fantastic application, great crew, wonderful support. So if you are looking for a UK based application, go to claritygo.com. So that's all I got to say about that. Thank you to Inktobo for their support of Behind the Signs.
Yes. And of course, thanks to all of you guys. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. So we don't have ads anymore. Thanks.
All right.
Thanks for being a part of the community.
Let's hit it. Episode 1 with Victoria
Liozynyansky.
Yeah. Brilliant Speaker Academy. Let's go.
Hey guys, so we're here with Victoria Liozynyansky, and she is the owner and I guess only teacher, or are there multiple teachers, instructors? Just you, of Brilliant Speaker coaches, of Brilliant Speaker Academy. And today we're kind of talking about a different topic that you wouldn't necessarily tie to the sign industry naturally, but really it is so intertwined with any industry, every industry. So today we're going to talk about overcoming your fear of public speaking.
Well, thank you so much for having me. This is really exciting because I do not get invited to sign podcasts every day. This is honestly no. And I love you guys. This is so wonderful that I'm here. I would love to share everything that I know and help your audience speak better, communicate better with the employees, present better, and just ultimately what everybody wants, run their businesses better.
And I think when we interview people, the thing that surprises them most is that Joe and I are actually both terrified of public speaking. Like terrified.
Well, I am not surprised because I knew about Joe.
Right. But we always have to calm their nerves, and we're like, don't worry, we're also nervous.
Yes. Okay. And so what do we normally do, Liz, when we first start interviewing people to calm their nerves? Ready? 1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3.
Well, I'm super excited, Victoria, that you joined us today. And we were thinking about this year and bringing on, industry experts, obviously, but sometimes reaching outside of what you would think of someone in the sign industry and having them talk to the folks in the sign industry is really important. And this topic is important to me because, like Liz shared, it's funny because when I was younger, I was in a career where I did public speaking every single week. I had to put together topics, and I was a youth director at a church, actually. So, I was speaking at conferences, and then I ended up in small business where all of my communication was between basically employees, but one-on-one with customers, selling contracts and doing bids and all that kind of stuff. So my world of, speaking to larger audiences shrunk really quickly. And then 30 years went by, and all of a sudden I find myself back in this place where I'm having to do presentations at company meetings. I'm speaking at conferences, teaching webinars and classes. And I'm finding that it's sending me into like a panic tailspin. And just trying to thinking to myself, oh, I hate this. But on the other hand, I love the people that I'm serving. So I know I have to work on this. And so that's where, I found you and was able to participate in your coaching program, which was super helpful to me. And I'm not saying that I'm healed. I still have to go through some of the things that I have to do to get ready to speak. But
you have tools in the toolbox. And then, similarly, kind of like you, I started this business younger. So I was a young boss, but also I'm in the construction or construction adjacent industry that is very male dominated. So I'm walking into rooms that are full of men that are easily 20 years older than me, a lot of times more than that. And I'm supposed to command the room, and being able to feel like you know what you're talking about, but also have the confidence, to talk to people it's not easy. Those kinds of meetings used to take it out of me for the whole day. I just one meeting and I'm like, I'm good. I'm done.
Well, as we kind of, work through talking about some of these, I think these things that we're going to talk about today with Victoria, I think the most important thing for Liz and I to share with our wonderful Behind the Signs audience is that if you do struggle with public speaking and you think about public speaking, probably most people would rather be in a single prop plane filled with spiders and snakes than have to give a presentation at a conference. You know what I mean? And they're not alone, though. I guess what I'm saying is like, you're not alone if you struggle with these things.
It's also important to note that public speaking isn't just giving presentations at a conference. Public speaking is talking to a client, talking to a vendor, talking to your employees, being able to present yourself confidently in any situation in business, but also clearly communicate your needs in business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I love this topic, but I want to circle back to what Joe said, that you said, oh, but I'm not healed. Well, let me tell a quick story about you. I hope you don't mind, where you were, when you were in my program, of course, you were working primarily on speaking at conferences and speaking for business purposes. But if you remember, we also worked on you officiating a wedding, where your speech was, or you presenting was actually in a big social environment with probably 100 people, and your nephew was getting married and you were officiating that wedding. And I remember so well how you came back, and we worked on it for a few weeks, right? And then you came back and you said, I remember it so well, you said there was a guy who was doing the production and audio and all of that stuff. And he came up to you after and he said, Joe, I've been in this business for 20 years. You was the best minister.
That's true.
I remember that. I love this. And he didn't say it just to be nice. I absolutely 100% believe that you were incredible there. So when you say, oh, but you see, when you treat, and we're going to talk about it, I'm sure today, but when you treat public speaking not as a, this big deal event, I'm lecturing or I'm, presenting, when you treat public speaking as a conversation, everything shifts and you can just be yourself and people lean in and listen.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. It'd be funny to me for you, like to hear from other people that you have issues with public speaking. Like, it's just really hard for me to believe it because you talk a lot. You make best friends with a tree in 5 minutes. Like, it's wild. One-on-one, you do not have a problem.
No, one-on-one, I don't. Small groups, I don't. It's just more like in the big groups that I've had struggles with. But even then, and again, Victoria, I know we're going to talk a little bit more about this. The more I treat it as just the same conversation, it's 100 one-on-ones at the same time.
Exactly. It's 100 one-on-ones at the same time. And this is, and I think you remember it from my program, this is exactly how I teach it. You don't treat it as, oh, there are 100 eyes on me, because that's overwhelming. You look into those 100, pairs of eyes and you go like, anxiety spikes. You go into panic, right? But when you treat everyone as an individual human being, as you treat this whole environment as, oh, there are just 100 individuals and I'm having a one-on-one conversation with them, that's when things become different. And listen, I used to be terrified of public speaking myself. It's not like I'm teaching it because I'm so confident and, like I was always confident. No, a few decades ago, I wouldn't be able to even say, hi, my name is Victoria on this podcast. I would stumble and I would be all panicky. And I completely understand how public speaking anxiety feels like. I was in a completely different industry. I overcame it for myself. I worked through it for years and I found a way how to overcome it for good, how to never, ever feel nervous when speaking again. And years later, now I'm teaching exactly what I did myself. And that's literally what we're going to be talking about.
Yeah. Well, that's very encouraging. That's good. That's good. And I'm getting there. I'm definitely getting a lot better for sure.
Yes,
and
the rest of the program.
Yeah. But I do, the tools in the program definitely helped me a lot. That's for sure. So, but let's talk a little bit, Liz, because I know Liz and I were talking about this before you came on. Sometimes I think, I'm not sure, I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. I love starting businesses, and I've started some really good ones that have done well, but I'm not really good. I'm more of an entrepreneur. I like to create, this is how I see it working. But then when you start getting down to the one-on-one and communicating expectations, I feel like, Liz, you've done a much better job with that. But I think talking to the sign shop owner right now that is struggling, to be able to do that, right? To communicate with employees, even at that level, that's the first step, finding their voice and laying out expectations. Liz, talk about that, because I feel like you're really good at that.
I mean, I'm really good at telling you what to do. Yes.
Well, okay, let's rephrase that. You're really good at telling me what to do.
Yeah. I am very good at it. I excel
I'm not good at listening, though.
No. Which is probably why I've gotten so good at telling you what to do over and over again. I've just had a lot of practice. No, I think that for me, how I've approached it, I lay out expectations because I don't really like the confrontation when expectations are gray. So, and someone doesn't meet my expectations that I haven't communicated, but I expect them. So for me, it's just kind of ironing out or laying out those expectations from the beginning. So that way there's just less chance for me to have to course correct, I think also for me, we have a smaller team. We're a team of 6. So it's so important that every person plays their role to the fullest extent. They really have to take on every bit of their role. So being able to communicate those expectations so that we're not being left to pick up the pieces is also really important. I think it becomes more important when you have a team that's really tight knit and works together. You just don't want to put the weight of someone else's job on another employee's shoulders and really it's your fault because you're not explaining what needs to be done. But I think that, you guys hear from me all the time, which is fine. But Victoria, you're the pro here. So I think it would be important for people to kind of understand why mastering public speaking as it relates to employee development and client sales and kind of being that voice of authority in your business and also in your business community is so important.
Well, and I think before you jump into that, Victoria, too, is just that why it's so important, especially since you had your brick and mortar small business. It'd be great to talk about that, but because like Liz says, as you're communicating your expectations clearly to your employees, that trickles out, right? It's like what the community sees if you're able to build that foundation internally first.
Right. Well, let's start right there. Let's start with employee communication and communicating everything clearly. So, Joe, as you mentioned, I used to have a brick and mortar business. And if any of you are in Houston, you may have heard about us. Natty Scientists of Houston, we did hands-on science for kids. So we were in many schools in Houston, in YMCAs and libraries, doing science shows, after-school programs, etc. So, and I've had this business for 7 years leading up to COVID, and I was just about to sell it to get into my current business full time, and COVID happened. So that's when I had to close the company. But I built it, just so you have some context. I built this company. It was a franchise. I built it from zero to number one Natty Scientist franchise in North America. And I absolutely 100% attribute this to communication. And let's start with employee communication. I think what Liz said is so on point, so important. Communicating very clearly your expectations from the very beginning. But this is where a lot of business owners go like, yeah, I understand, but how? So what I found the most effective way, at least for me, especially in my business where I had employee rotation, where new employees would come in and some of the older employees would leave, I found that employee training was the cornerstone of my business. And what I created, I literally sat down, and that's what I recommend you all do. You sit down and you think through your regular employee training, try to find holes in it, and then you record your training. What I did, I had literally everything recorded. I had welcome to my company. Now, where do we start? I had that recorded. I had why we do what we do, right? So they understand the bigger picture. I had that recorded. It was literally a giant welcome sequence of videos that every employee had to go through that I recorded myself. Very easy, very simple, no production, just recorded. But every employee was on the same page. And I think what you really need to focus on, not just, okay, technically, this is how you do, this has the steps. Of course, that kind of training has to be there. And I had that kind of training. But I think it's important to start with, now you're part of this business. What does it mean? These are our clients. What does it mean? This is what we're trying to do in the world. What does it mean? Help them find that connection that makes them happy to be working for you. Have them find that bigger why, so that they don't just show up at work because they get a paycheck. They show up at work and they see the bigger picture. I think this is very, very important.
Yeah. And if you've been with us for a while, you will note that the things she talked about are things we've already talked about in previous episodes. So in order to make those recordings, you need to understand your why behind the business, right? Because you need to be able to communicate that. And also to train employees and understand what tasks they do have. You need to have already gone through, if you've started this by yourself and worn all the hats, you need to figure out which roles are actually a different role. So that way, as you hire, you can split those off. But those are two things you just mentioned in that this is what I recorded that we've talked about previously, but it comes together, right? And this is just the next step.
But I love the idea of a pre-recording.
Well, that saves you a lot of time, doesn't it? That would have been smart.
Absolutely. I had no time to train my employees all the time. I trained my first two and I'm like, okay, done. We're done right here. And then I recorded everything. And not only I felt that it was very, very helpful, but my employees were telling me, this is the first company I've ever worked for that had their entire training system so well thought through and developed, because as an owner, you know it. You just know it. You don't need to even think about certain situations, certain scenarios, certain challenges. But your employees, they don't know. Even if they come from a similar business, they don't think like you. So it's important to not just train them on the steps, which is obviously very important, but it's important to train them on the way they need to think.
Right. Yeah. And that can only come from the owner's voice, right? I mean,
absolutely. Absolutely.
And that actually just reminds me, we get that question in the Behind the Science Facebook group all the time. Where can I find videos for training people? We need them as an industry. Yes, we need a more, encompassing training program, but like, what a great start to training someone on your business. Why not develop some of these videos and training programs yourself once, so that way you can use them, going forward for every employee. That's such a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that would absolutely help you with setting expectations, right? And making sure that everything is communicated properly from the very beginning, so that later your employee doesn't come back to you, which is obviously we've all had issues where employees would come back to us and say, well, I just didn't know. There is no, I didn't know, because everything is spelled out. Everything is laid out in the very beginning.
And I can imagine this, some sign shop owners right now going, oh man, I'm not going to make videos. I'm too welding this sign cabinet. But the thing is, they don't have to be these perfect, polished videos, right? Just be yourself. And, most of your employees are coming on board, you've made all the mistakes. So, and they're just where you were 5 years prior or 10 years prior, starting a career in the sign industry or trying to get better. So you're just being yourself and talking about things you've learned and tying that into the training. The training it's great. It's going to make them feel comfortable and give them the freedom to communicate what you really want for the company.
And you're obviously still going to have to pair that with hands-on training, right, for each role. But at least that gives you a head start when someone joins your company. There's so many little nuances that happen in the beginning that just could be knocked out with this video.
Right. And it could be as simple as, because Joe, you mentioned that a lot of them may be thinking, well, it's overwhelming. I have to create this perfect videos. No, this is how you go. Well, hello and welcome to my company.
Yeah.
This is the bare minimum. Yeah. This is like, you can record this. And of course, I would not recommend that you wing it, even though it's all in your head. Don't wing it. Just think it through, put some bullet points, and then break it down into multiple videos so that each video has a certain purpose, a certain goal, and they're short because everybody's attention span is very short. So they're short videos, and have them in some sort of a system. Could be as simple as private YouTube channel, private links, but have them all organized so that all you have to do is to give your employees the link to where they find everything. You give them the order in which they need to watch them, or you already position them in order. And that's it. That's step number 1 of employee training.
Well, I probably take a little exception to everyone's attention span being short, because Elizabeth will tell you that my attention span is laser. I am laser focused, Victoria. Whammo. So all this is, the reason why it's important, I think, for sign shop owners to learn to communicate clearly to their employees is because the next step is, those skills are what you're taking out of your business, right, to the client base. So I've pretty much been self-employed my whole life. I've had sign shops and different businesses, but there was a short period of time where I did work at a sign shop for a few years, and the owner was a great guy, unbelievable craftsman, but didn't communicate very well with the employees, so, and generally things would build up, and because he didn't know how to articulate his expectations, he might get a little upset or angry, and it would turn up into blowing up, right? Like he didn't know how to consistently communicate with employees. Well, fast forward, we went on a sales call together, and it was for a really big project. So there's 2 owners and myself, and we go into this room, and we were prepared. We had layouts and some engineering drawings and ideas and concepts and budgets. We were ready, but we went into the room and there was like 10 people, which we weren't expecting. So there was the initial architectural design firm. There was the developers of the properties, a few, managers of the construction project. It was big. And the question came up, why should we work with your firm? The owner turned completely white. The poor guy his mouth froze up, dry mouth sort of a thing, couldn't talk. Fast forward, he recovered. He had some water. But in the meantime, I BS'd a little bit and talked about some of the big projects the company did. And because at that level, I was comfortable with that size in a room. And plus I've been pitching sign projects for, a decade or more at that point. And so, anyway, what happened to him? I think about like what happens to the mind, when that happens. And I know we talked a lot about this in the course. So it'd be good, I think, for folks to know that it is something, it's not just like, oh, I suck at this. It's something that really just happens to people.
Literally leaves the room, find any excuse to leave the room just so I don't have to speak up in the meeting. That's how bad it was. I ran off stage in tears when I was a child. Like, it was so bad. Even one-on-one was hard. One-to-many, impossible. And here I am, right, on the podcast, teaching other people how to speak publicly with genuine confidence. It is something that is completely and totally learnable. This is not a life sentence. And the reason, and I'll explain it in very simple terms, why why not we, all of us, but why most people experience public speaking anxiety, because by the way, most people struggle with this. For some people, it's not an issue. For most people, our brain is wired to perceive public speaking as a real physical danger. You know how if, let's say you're in the forest and all of a sudden a wolf howls, your heart begins to race, right? You get goosebumps, your palms get sweaty. That's your brain warning you that there is danger. That's your brain literally sending you fear signals that there is danger. Unfortunately, for most people, our brain cannot tell that public speaking is not that kind of danger. And it treats and perceives public speaking as a real physical threat. And the more you put yourself in situations where you are exposed to that threat, the more your brain gets into a habit of sending you those fear signals. And that's why in my program, I work with people who've been, at the height of their industry, Joe included, people who've been speaking for decades and still experience public speaking anxiety because brain is now wired and in a habit of treating public speaking as a dangerous situation. And so that's why it happens. And so the only way to undo that is not by, pretending to be confident. That doesn't work. Your brain is not going to get fooled, and neither will people who are in front of you. The only real way to overcome public speaking anxiety is to change the way your brain perceives public speaking. That's really the only way. And yeah, I feel really badly for that person who went into a panic mode in a meeting. It happens to a lot of people. And unfortunately, and here is a real issue. You could be really good at what you do, right? You are really good at what you do, and you know it. That's the worst part. You know you're good at what you do. You have so much confidence in your abilities, in you as a human. You have this professional and human confidence. But as soon as all eyes are on you, that confidence disappears completely. And you're sitting there going like, who am I to be here? They're going to think I don't know anything. They're going to think I'm a fool, right? And makes no logical sense. And of course, the problem is nobody's in your head. People don't understand that you're just panicking because you're afraid of public speaking. When you speak with, your voice trembles and you're kind of doubtful, people perceive that you don't know what you're talking about. That's a real danger.
It is. We have, two different kind of sections of our business. We don't have a sales team. That's a talk for later.
That's because everyone on your team is a salesperson.
Don't agree to disagree, Joe.
Owners sell. You have to.
We do have like our design team, and for us, our designers get on and they talk about their design. They talk about the why behind their design. They talk about the problems that it's solving. But if you can't confidently talk, you can be a really good designer. But if you can't hold the conversation, if you're very monotone and very timid and quiet, it's like you lose the excitement of people seeing their design for the first time. And if they don't feel your excitement, they don't think the design is exciting, even if it's exactly what it needs to be and it's going to solve their problem. It looks beautiful. It doesn't matter. Like if you're not able to confidently speak about it and also learn how to have inflection in your tone so that you're keeping people intrigued and interested, it's not going to go over well. Same with our other side is project management. So once we get projects, then kind of moves on to that team. And that's the team that I'm more part of. And I oversee our PM. And when I'm hiring in my PM roles, I'd actually rather look for someone who has theater experience than any sign experience, because I can teach you signs. I can teach you signs really fast. It's a different language. We can learn it. Like I can teach all of that, but it's so hard for me. It's hard to teach the ability to play a part, right? And in a lot of ways, you're being yourself, but in a lot of ways, when you're kind of on a PM team, the confidence, you might not always feel that inside, but you play that part. And if you play it well, you know, some people call it masking, if you will, use whatever word you want. It's still giving them the confidence that they need in order to trust your team. And then it goes with vendors, right? For me, it's like being able to communicate clearly with a vendor is very important. Being able to set your expectations with a vendor, super important. But also, then we look at like code inspectors, fire inspectors, and like being able to switch to the person and know how to talk to someone in that regard. And it really all comes down to being confident in speaking to people. So are there any tricks? I know that's like, no, not really. There's no easy trick, but are there any, if someone's, let's say you come across an owner who blanks and turns white, or a designer who just gets timid and can't confidently, present, or a PM who's extremely organized, but can't carry the conversation, can't command the room. Are there any tips or tricks you would give them?
Absolutely. Though I don't believe in tips and tricks, I do believe that this confidence that you build, it comes from the inside. Because think about it, if you are trying, and that's why I don't believe in masks, I don't believe in facades, I don't believe in faking, because no matter how much you try, even though, okay, for that meeting, you were able to fool the customers to think that, look at me, I'm all confident and, all excited. Deep inside, you're still feeling like a fraud. And that messes with your head big time. And that's why I don't look at it as a long-term solution. Okay, maybe you go through one meeting. Really, what you want to do is you want to build this confidence from the inside. Now, as far as what you can do short-term, instead of pretending, I still would want you to do something different, not pretend, but something different. So let's talk about situation where you're presenting to clients, potential clients, right? And let's remember, as a sign shop owner, and I absolutely understand that because I was brick and mortar owner, they will see probably 5 companies just like yours. And so it becomes really, really important how you present, how you speak. And as Liz just said, if you are not excited about your product, they're not going to be excited about you. But how do you become excited? When you're so terrified that you're in your head the whole time, right? You cannot even get excited about it because you're like, what is he thinking? What if they say it's not good? What if I don't present it well, right? You're constantly in your head. So in order for you to get out of your head, in order for you to actually look at this presentation from a different angle, what you need to think about is not, I am presenting. What you need to think about is, how can I speak about this solution that's going to benefit my client the most? Not how I speak about my company that makes it the best. How do I speak about the solution to show that it benefits the client the most? Do you see the difference in approach? This is all about how do I benefit them? And when you stop thinking about, I just need to present us in the best light, and you start focusing on, this is a real problem that they have. This is how our solution is going to solve your problem in this way, in this way, and this way. That's when you focus on that. That's when you begin to forget about your fear. You begin to forget about your own, oh, maybe I'm not good enough. And you stay very much focused on the solution and how it's going to make the client's life better. It's just a different way of thinking about it. Not about myself, not about my company, not about how great we are, but how our greatness and that solution we brought is going to benefit you.
It's not a quick fix, but it's definitely a good mindset shift.
Yeah, for sure. And
it's a shift that you can make at the moment. You can make that shift immediately. You literally can still feel nervous going in, but you, before walking into that meeting, you tell yourself, I'm just going to focus on one thing only, and that is making client. Because what does a client want? I mean, you have to think about it, right? What does every client want? They don't want your signs.
They want to solve their problem.
They want their problem
They
solved.
want to solve their problem. They want to grow their business. Ultimately, they want to make more money. They don't care about your specific product or your specific company. They want to make more money. They want to solve their problem. So when you come in, and before you go into that meeting, I am not going to sell us on our product. I'm not going to sell our company to them. I'm going to show them how we can solve their problem best, how we can help them make more money. If you focus on that and you stay focused on that, you forget that you need to promote yourself. You get out of your head, you feel less anxiety.
There's not a lot in the sign industry that separates one shop from the other. I mean, obviously some are more professional than others. Some use a little bit better product, materials than others. There are those things that set them apart from each other. But for the most part, not enough to nail the deal. It has to really come from your voice and your convictions of how you can help solve the problem. When I was one thing that's really helped me a lot from the class, and I don't want you to give away all the special sauce because obviously you have this coaching program, but the talk formula was, really, really helpful to me. But also the whole mantra that you maybe you can talk a little bit about this is, love your topic, love your audience, love yourself. I don't know if I got that order right. Maybe it's love yourself, love your audience, love your topic. But I think for me, like breaking that down in my mind before I'm giving a talk or doing a podcast or teaching a webinar or whatever has helped me a lot. And then the talk formula, which I know is pretty extensive and it takes a long time to go through all that, but maybe you can share some of those ideas too.
Yeah. So what you talked about was my brilliant speakers formula, which is love your audience, love your topic, love yourself. And I think that is really something that helps a lot of my clients really embrace speaking as not as a scary situation, but as a conversation. Well, let's just talk about love your audience. Let's just talk about that one. What does it mean? And I think this is exactly what we already touched on. What does it mean to love your audience? Let's say you are speaking, you're doing employee training, or you're doing, let's say, employee meeting. We talked about training. Let's do an employee meeting. Let's say you are terrified of speaking in public, and here are 20 people sitting looking at you, and you have to speak. Most people stay in their head. Most people think about one thing only. How do I not screw up here? And get through it? Yeah, how do I get through it? You don't want to be one of those people. What you want to do is you want to look at those 20 people in front of you, or think about them ahead of time, ideally, and say, how can what I say benefit them the most? Because if you think about any company meeting, you've been to those company meetings yourself many times in the audience. What does your audience think? They're sitting there like this, and they're going, what's in it for me? Every time you're in the audience as just somebody who's sitting there, you're like, okay, why do I have to listen to this? What's in it for me? So you have to be very clear as a speaker, as an owner who is speaking to your employees. What's in it for them? How do I speak in a way that benefits them? How do I speak in a way that really makes a difference to them? Because remember, I love this quote by Maya Angelou. People don't care how much you know. People don't care what you do. I'm misquoting it, but it's pretty much, people don't care how much you know. People don't care how much you do. People only care how much you care. right? People will forget what you said. People will forget what you did. People will never forget how you made them feel. And that's very, very important when you speak to your clients, when you speak to your employees. If you can make that client feel confident that you understand their problems, you understand the solution, and you understand how to create this seamless process where it's completely there, they don't have to worry about anything, and you just solve their problem, they're going to hire you. If you understand that, if you really can embody this and amplify it inside of you, you will never, ever have trouble landing clients. As a business owner, I had to go and present many, many times in situations where presenters or vendors like myself, we would be literally speaking one after another. Not separate meetings, but one after another in front of a giant audience of organizations that are going to be selecting us for their programs. And I remember how it feels, where a lot of people were like, oh, I'm so scared. And all I was thinking about was not how do I present my company in a way that, that we're the best and we're the most fun. No, I always think, what does this audience need? And when I speak, I don't speak about us, I speak about them. That's the biggest advice I can give you. That's going to change everything.